All right, so now we want to be able to delete our contacts, and we want this to happen from the contact item component because that's where the delete button is. So this is the contact item component, and we're going to need to use context here because we need to call a method to delete the contact, which we're going to put here, which will then dispatch to our reducer and send it down. So let's go ahead and bring in our context. And then we're going to initialize it. Let's see, let's go right up at the top here. We'll set that to use context, which we need to bring in. Let's bring that in up here. Okay, and then what we want to do is for the button, let's see, we have our delete button right here. So all we really need to do is call that method, right? But there is some other stuff that we're going to have to do later when we set the current contact for the edit and all that and clear it. So we could right now just call it directly. Like we could say on click equals, and then we could do our contact context dot delete, but I'm going to actually create a separate method called on delete here. Okay, so on click equals on delete, and then let's go up here and create our on delete. And let's just call, actually I'll open up some curly braces, and then we can do, you know what, let's pull out from our context. We'll go right here and we'll say const, and we're going to have a delete contact action, and we'll pull that from contact context. And then right here we can just run delete contact, and that's going to take in the ID, and we have access to the ID because we're pulling it out of the contact that's passed into the props. Okay, so let's save that. Now this isn't going to work yet because this doesn't actually exist. Okay, this part of the context doesn't exist. So let's go to our contact state file and let's add that. So I'm actually going to copy this and let's change it to delete contact, and instead of taking in a whole contact, it just takes the ID. We don't need this, we'll get rid of that. And then we want to dispatch the type of delete contact, and then the payload is going to be the ID. So let's save that, and now we have to go to our reducer, and we basically have to catch this delete contact and then update the state accordingly. So let's go to our contact reducer, and we already brought in delete contact, so let's create a case for it. Delete contact, and what we're going to do here is return the current state, and then what I'll do is filter out the contact that we want to delete from the UI. So let's say contacts, and we'll say state dot contacts, which is the current array, and then we want to filter. So filter takes in a function. We're gonna say for each contact, we'll call it contact, and then I want to evaluate and say where the contact dot ID is not equal to the payload, the action dot payload. So what that'll do is it's going to look at this, and it's going to return it's all contacts that are not the current ID that's in the payload. Because remember, in our action here, we sent the ID in the payload, so that's what we're looking at when we say action.payload. And we want to filter out that specific contact so that it goes away. Okay? And later on, we'll add, you know, our request here so that it gets deleted from the actual server. Oh, and one more thing we need to do is in our state, we need to actually add to the provider delete contact. Okay, it's very important to add that because we're providing this function to our component. So let's go back and let's give it a shot. We'll go to Sarah Watson and hit delete, and she goes away. Harry White, Jill Johnson. Of course, it's not going to stick because it's not getting saved to the database. We're not dealing with the back end. It's just the UI. Okay, so we can do deletes. Now in the next video, we're going to start to work on edits. What we want to happen is we want to click edit and we want to set a current contact. Okay, that'll be actually, we're going to add that to our state. And then that should show in this form, and we should be able to then update that contact and show certain things based on it. Okay, so we'll start on that next.